Same with Mark and Laurie. So I heard from them this morning. And there's others that are out of town. I know Kelsey and TJ are gone. Okay, you guys you didn't read all the way down through verse 26 last week. I think you got down to about you finished up the fruit of the Spirit. And we'll talk about, what I wanted to do is that we didn't spend a lot of time last week talking about these terms. Some of these things we don't mention a lot. And I think about some of the terms like lewdness or even uncleanness, dissensions and heresies. Well, that's stuff that's bad, but we need to talk about what they mean. And I think what's really important is that we understand the difference between the works of the flesh and the fruit of the Spirit. And what I want us to do as we're going through those terms, and we're not going to dwell on all of them because most of them are self-explanatory, but I wanted us to notice that in the last part of verse 21, and it's up here, right down here, I want you guys to be thinking when it says, and the like. So what I'm wanting you to be thinking about is, okay, if all those things are bad, which they are, what do they mean? And what are some other evils that relate to them, that are like them? We often mention that there are a lot of sins in this world that you cannot find them in the Bible, per se. And I'll say, well, yeah. I've had people call me and say, Chuck, where does it say it's wrong to use drugs? And I'll go, well, it's right there in Galatians chapter 5, verse 1. And the like. And so I want us to be thinking about, when we talk about these words, what might come to mind, especially when I think about sorcery. There's some things that go on in this world that's just wrong that relate to that. Does anything come to your mind? Any sinful act? How about palm reading? People go and get their palms read. EJ?
Back up to the first one. There are people that still in New Orleans that still do voodoo and voodoo.
Okay, voodoo. Yeah, and that relates to the same thing. Okay, the magic, the witchcraft that's there. And you want to know what makes that stuff so wrong? What makes that so wrong?
Evil doing.
Yeah, I know it's evil doing, but why? No, but why are they doing it? It's a belief in what? That's it. You're talking about putting a trust in another power, okay? In another power. And by the way, guys, we do it jokingly all the time. I know we all do it jokingly. But you would believe how many people would say, well, that's not going to happen. Knock on wood. What do we mean by knock on wood? Why am I knocking on wood? Yeah, I got to counter that. It's kind of like, oh, I spilled the soap. Throw it over my shoulder. It's like there's this power out there that we're afraid of. And that's why he's talking about that. You don't dabble with that stuff. That stuff is just wrong. Astrology that relates to it. That's what that was. That knocking on the superstition, putting your open up an umbrella in the house. The list goes on and on. So guys, we know what idolatry is. Fornication, better word, it encompasses more transgression. Why is that a good one to use? What would it encompass? Homosexuality. Okay, so that's included within it. So it's far more reaching. So with men, women with women. The uncleanness is talking about the impurities that are out there. What comes to mind when you think of lewdness?
Dancing.
Modesty, dancing. Why? Why are you using that term? Yeah, when we're talking about lewdness, we're talking about that which creates wantonness, a sexual vice that is there. And you guys were mentioning some of the likes and the likes. You're talking about the immodest apparel. You're talking about the dance that is out there. Idolatry, that's all about. Sorcery, we just finished talking about that. Hatred. That's a work of the flesh. Any of you guys hate anything? Bunch of sinners. What's that? Vegetables. Who would do that? Hatred. Guys, this is a work of the flesh. What we need to understand what he's talking about, because I can open up my Bible in Psalm 119, verse 104, that when he talks about knowing the truth, knowing God's word, he says, therefore I hate every false way. So is hating bad?
No, it's not totally bad.
A work of the flesh, hatred. What are we talking about here, guys? What do you think's coming to mind?
It's like you need a person.
Like hating your brother or hating something good. I mean,
Okay, I like that. What were you going to say, Stace?
hating the sin.
Yeah, you can hate sin, right? But what?
Not hate the sin.
But not hate the sinner. And another problem when we talk about this hate that the Bible's dealing with here, almost unlawful hate. Give me an unlawful hate. Prejudice. Okay. And you're going to see some of these overlap. You think somebody can hate because of this? Because of envy?
Right.
You know people that are jealous but don't hate? Pretty hard to do, isn't it? It's pretty hard to do. And so what we're talking about here is that, this unlawful hatred that is out there, and people that just hate. Somebody could give you a compliment and you hate them for doing it. What do you call that? It's the three-letter word that comes under all things. Sin. If you hate somebody who compliments you, it's sin. You better repent it. EJ?
You might not be right on, but in there, because I know people that do this, they hate themselves so much that when things don't go their way, they slice themselves, or they tattoo themselves, or they put piercing all everywhere.
Well,
Is that
you're opening a Pandora box there. You're opening up something and go 1,000 different directions, but there's something that you mentioned there that we will discuss. Hating yourself. Okay? And hurting yourself. That's unlawful. All right? The Bible makes that abundantly clear. And so we have to be careful of that hatred that is unjustified. There is justified hate. Let's understand that. You can hate every false way. I don't hate it when somebody does something bad to me.
Amen.
That's not something that you enjoy, okay? Now, contentions. What's contentions mean, guys?
Argumentative, strife, kind of stir the pot, kind of keep things not being peaceful, the opposite of being gentleness.
All right, you're absolutely right there. We get into this idea of people that are quarrelsome. I mean, they don't like it unless things are stirred up. There's just too much joy around here. I mean, there's people that live for discord, even within families. If you can't be miserable, then I'm not happy. Or if I'm not miserable, I'm not happy. That might sound a little odd, but yeah, there are people who live to be miserable. And so we have to watch that idea of adding, if you've heard that term, adding fuel to the fire. The proverb writer talks about a soft answer will turn away wrath. Do anybody here know how to stir things up? Yeah, go to a household where there's siblings. They just know how to push buttons. That's stirring things up. And we have to watch it. And we're going to see the contrast here with the fruit of the Spirit. And by the way, in our readings that you guys studied last week, okay, you guys read this already. Now look at verse 17. For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. Now get this. And these are contrary to one another. Let's not think for ourselves that we can create in the middle a gray area. That I can be just a little bit envious. Because I still love it. It's like being in the 7th. You can say anything you want to somebody out of hatred, but if at the end of it you say, but bless their heart. You've covered it with love. But bless their heart. Man, that guy's just evil, bless his heart. We've got to be careful that we're trying to justify doing the wrong thing. And he says they don't have anything to do with one another. And I like this because what it does, It draws a line. It's right or it's wrong. We live in a society that we don't want right or wrong. What do we want? Everybody loves gray. Why? Because then you can put your foot a little bit in the gray on this side and a little bit on that side by saying, well, I'm not totally that bad because I'm kind of good. And we have to be careful of that, guys, because the Bible makes it clear about what is right and what is wrong. And people don't like the black and white discussion of the scriptures of what's right and wrong because it makes it too, in their minds, too legalistic. Dave.
You hear all the time, let's agree to disagree.
Well, that's it. That's the perfect analysis of the gray area. I won't say you're wrong if you don't say I'm wrong. Okay? Well, that's why we have to stay with the scriptures. If the Bible says it's unlawful, it's wrong, okay. Jealousy. You know, again, guys, these are works of the flesh. Man, I don't want any works of the flesh. Do I have the fruit of the Spirit? If I have the fruit of the Spirit, I'm not going to have this. And so jealousies. Can I miss heaven because I'm jealous? Somebody shows some favoritism? What makes jealousy so bad?
Sin.
Well, no, that's what it is. But what makes it so bad? It can turn to envy. I like that. It can lead to other things such as what? What else makes it so bad, Nicole?
It shows discontentment and not being thankful for what you have.
That's it. That's it. And another thing what jealousy does? Pardon? Anger. Oh, absolutely. And can you really be kind towards that person when you're jealous towards them? You're not real. And to me, a big thing with this, with jealousy, is, to me, this is classic. You become the biggest hypocrite that ever walked. Because people who are jealous can pretend to be nice. I mean, that's the pretending aspect. A lot of us, if we're guilty of any of this, you can pretend and you can put on that cloak over there of, yeah, I'm really happy for you. Loser. It's just like, we understand to their face that the pretending that goes on. God knows our hearts. That's what makes this so serious. That's why I didn't want us to go through this too quickly. Jealous over what? Let's identify some of this. What would you be jealous over?
Somebody's job.
Somebody's job, right?
Sounds like a soap opera. Somebody stole somebody's man or woman.
Okay, jealousy over somebody liking somebody over somebody else. Nancy.
Just someone period. The way they live and the way they talk.
That's it. That's it. I mean, and it's a fine line. This is between jealousy and envy, because what you're jealous over. And I think jealousy has a lot to do with selfishness, self-centeredness. I'm jealous because it should all be about me. Everybody out there, make me happy. And I don't want you to have any success. I don't want to hear you praise somebody else. Anything comes out of your lips, it needs to be about me and build me up. Now, I'm telling you, jealousy is going to cause so many people to just have it, just like the rest of these, and we have to be mindful of it. Tim.
Well, we talked about jealousy leading to envy can lead to murder, but they're all sin, right? So that's why we need to nip any sin. So, because sin is sin.
Right.
And we don't want to nip it because I don't want it to lead to something else. It's already sin.
It's already sin. And so since we want it in the light, let's try to, as we go through this, think of what are some ways that we can head it off at the pass. If I'm starting to be envious or jealous of somebody, what do you think I could do to fix that?
I want to think about everything that you've had and be thankful for that.
Okay, learn to be thankful. Warren?
We study a great deal about examining ourselves.
Okay.
I think this is the class we do that. If we find ourselves in that situation, whoever suffering from the jealous portion, you need to examine yourself, because you're the one that's going to suffer at the end of the day, not necessarily what you're jealous of.
If I'm jealous of you, does that bother you? If you don't know what? It doesn't affect you at all. If I'm jealous of you and your job that you make, if I'm jealous about you, I'm making my life miserable. Trey and then Patrick.
Just like we're supposed to mourn with each other, if we just learn to be happy for one another, that can really head jealousy off. If we're really genuinely joyful for something someone uses.
And I'm going to tell you, I practice that. You know, one of the tools I have used, you know, when you're young and you envy people's ability, that was me. Envy people's ability. You know what I learned to do? Go up to them and compliment them. Compliment them. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, that was really nice of you. Now they're complimenting me for complimenting them. And now he feels good and I feel good and everybody feels good. You see, there are steps that you have to take. Patrick.
Something that I think with this, there are two prayers that we need to pray. One, Thanksgiving, like,
Right.
but then also pray for the person that you're jealous of.
There it
And
is.
thank God that they have that ability or whatever they have. And it really draws it into respect.
So now you're complimenting him not only to their face, but to the Lord, right? And you know what? You can even do it to other people. Mallory,
I was gonna say a lot of that whole list, it basically all starts with that whole selfish ambition, and a lot of it is based on what I want. It's all about focusing on yourself, and to really head that off is to start looking outward and stop looking inward about like your own desires. That's what makes it works in the flesh. It's all about yourself. And when you start, serving other people and looking at opportunities to help other people, you can cover a lot of those things by focusing on the outside yourself.
it's true. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. EJ?
I've got one dumb question. Isn't that where you think, or a person would think of, I think it's Matthew something. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me and through God who strengthens me. But then whatever that person's got, and if you have that type of attitude, you're not going to be where you're going to do something to that person. You're going to think about that. I can get this and I can do this too. It's going to take some time, but I can do that too. And may God rest him.
Well, and I think that's getting back to Patrick, the whole idea of praying to God and asking him to help you to become a better person, because I don't want that quality. It's not a, people are not going to admire that. People who are jealous, by the way, people who are jealous, do other people notice it? Absolutely. If you think you're fooling your brethren, your friends, they can see right through you. And I'm going to tell you something. I did a sermon on this a long time ago, and I remember going into gospel meeting, and I had a long list of these things, and then on the other side, I had how we justify it with the fruit of the Spirit. And I remember with jealousy, I said, we don't call it jealousy, we call it low self-esteem. Is that what it is? It's called jealousy. But we want to justify it. We get over the fruit of the Spirit. Well, I'm not jealous of you because that's sin. I just kind of have low self-esteem. There's no excuse for jealousy. Low self-esteem is not an excuse for jealousy. Now, a person can have low self-esteem. I get that. But it's good to be humble. It's good to not brag on yourself. But we need to be the kind of people that can build other people up and not cause ourselves to go into a spiral down. Now, what about the outburst of wrath? Now, an outburst of wrath, how is that sinful? Anybody here have an outburst of wrath lately? Oh, Nikki raised her hand. Go ahead. No, she was going to make a comment. Nikki, what were you going to say?
No, I was raising my hand.
Why? Do you have children? I could have said, why? Are you married? Outburst of wrath. What makes that so wrong? What is an outburst of wrath? Tess?
You've lost control.
One thing that we learned within, what's the last point on the fruit of the Spirit? Obviously, what's going to be on the left-hand side is going to be in contrast to what we have with the fruit of the Spirit. And so when I think about a person who loses an outburst of wrath, is a person who loses control. What else happens, though, with an outburst of wrath? What makes it so bad? Nancy?
They're angry. They're just totally angry. They say stuff that they may not normally say.
Okay, that's there's nothing wrong. Did Jesus have an outburst of wrath? No, but he had wrath that you could see, and it was demonstrated. And so that's why we need to make sure we understand what's right and what's wrong within this, Nikki.
To me, it kind of also has more the idea of like almost aggression or violence to it. Like, I'm joking when I say that I had an outburst of wrath. I don't like, beat all the kids or anything like that. But it does kind of, to me, it has the idea of like it's not just yelling at someone, it's like truly losing control and not tempering any of your angry urges.
And that is so true, because when you talk about the sinfulness of this, is it relates to this idea of destroying your influence. People that are around you, the people that you're having an outburst of wrath towards. Our goal is ultimately, number one, I want to get to heaven, and I want to help other people get to heaven. You can never lose sight of that. Not talking about, nothing wrong with disciplining your child, nothing wrong walking into a room and who wrote on the wall? I mean, it's not an outburst of wrath, but we need to figure out what is sin.
Well, I look at outburst of wrath, your tongue is not tamed at the time of your outburst of wrath.
Well, not just your tongue.
Well, right, but I'm saying that, a wrath is where I think you can, like Jesus' wrath, he knew what he was saying.
Yes.
Where an outburst of wrath, a lot of times, that tongue is not tamed. Stuff is coming out.
Well, it's to be angry, but sin not. And that's what we're talking about. The person that loses it. Violent.
Right.
Absolutely. This is the problem that scares me. I don't mind people owning guns, but I sure have a problem with a person who's caught up in the works of the flesh and loses it because somebody in front of him was drinking a coffee and dropped it, went like that and slammed the brakes, and the guy behind him thinks he did it on purpose. And gets out and does something violent. And so we just need to be careful of this, because we just talk about losing control, the wrath that is there, not being mindful of what we're saying, what we're doing, and not being mindful of the consequences. Now, what about being like selfish ambition? What's so simple? Selfish ambitions? Don't you have ambition? And aren't those my ambitions? Does anybody here want to be a great hockey player? No. I guess I'm being selfish. Now, what's a selfish ambition?
There's a lot of times with the selfish ambition is that you would do anything to get up to what you want, not caring what it and how it affects others.
That's it. Actually, within the selfish ambition, the definition, because that's from the New King James, the Old King James talks about the idea of strife and, again, factions. The selfish ambition is when a person is playing politics and they're trying to destroy relationships within the church. And we need to be mindful of that, because these are works of the flesh. And we need to see what people, and again, the thing that we don't know when people are up to something, you can know when people are up to something and trying to hurt other people because it's their selfish ambition. You know what? I want to be an elder someday. And so I could start politicking. If I'm not qualified, okay, but I can try to convince other people that's not a big deal. Get a selfish ambition that is there. My mind's trying to race and think of other things, but
So for, say, a father, or it could be a mother, a breadwinner, the family would consider a promotion or something to someplace where there's no congregation. That's being really selfish.
that's true, and that could really, again, destroy the lives of others. You're not being mindful of that. You're more interested in climbing the corporate ladder that you're forgetting about others. Bernice.
Not caring who you hurt to get what you want.
That's it. That's exactly right. That's when you think about selfishness, it's so the opposite of a Christian, because a Christian is selfless, not selfish. And we're thinking about others. And all that we're reading, really, when you think about adultery, fornication, even at the very top, it's all about what I want. I want to satisfy my desires. I don't care what God thinks. And this whole idea, God just wants me to be happy. There are a lot of people that are happy doing these things. They're happy being selfish. Do you really want to, step on that person to get to be the CEO? Yes, sir. They're happy. Dissensions? What comes to mind with dissensions? Would we have?
Arguments, disagreements.
Again, I like one of the definitions of it, disunion. You know, the idea of dividing. Congregations are known to have what, which is dangerous? Cliques. What creates a clique? Nick?
A lot of time it can be something innocent that starts at like I've gone to a lot of places where it's like, oh, you went to Florida College? I went to Florida College too. And so people kind of congregate with people that have something in common with them.
Exactly right. Are you a Kentucky fan? Anybody else? Bernice, you got your hand up?
A group of people that separate themselves from the rest of the group.
That's it. And within congregations, it can happen. You know, this side of the congregation never talks with anybody on this side. It's not really a big congregation, but you know, but sometimes that happens in places, right? Cliques. It can happen with. Oh, you have children. Oh, you're married. You know, I'm telling you, cliques can get so strong that they just want to associate with other people. I don't have anything in common with them. And I'm just thinking, be careful of this because we can be creating this, our own little party. And it can happen. And I remember preaching this years ago when we first started the work here. I said, be careful of creating a whole church clique. What did I mean? Did anybody remember what I meant by that? Creating a whole a whole church clique? What did I mean by that?
You leave everybody outside out of it.
So when a visitor comes, you're not one. And it can even happen with, you know, when you started the congregation, oh, you're not one of the original. We've been here since the beginning. All 8 years ago. We started the work here. It's like, yeah, well, you've only been here 2. You know, I'm telling you, the dissensions can rise in so many different ways, and we have to stay alert. What about heresies? Well, we don't use that a lot. Are you guys caught up in heresies, Trey?
Just real quick.
Okay, you want to back up?
Yeah,
Okay.
just back up on. You know, we went to church with Warren and Tina for 17 years.
Mhm.
We sat on opposite sides of the building. Did not know them really until we came here. Love them. Get into it. We go out with them and have breakfast with them. And it's all because we just never found our way to that side for no other reason than we just did.
And they don't have kids.
Well, I really want to move on. I haven't had breakfast. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You know, these kind of things, I'm glad we can smile about it. And that's good. We understand the seriousness of it because it's those little things that automatically somebody could be thinking right now and be jealous. Right? I haven't. Anybody me? You know, and I've seen it rise, that selfishness, I've seen it rise in so many different ways over the years. I can remember telling somebody, hey, you know what, we're getting together next Saturday afternoon for a potluck. First I heard of it. I'm just telling you right now. Well, you know, they're upset that they weren't the first one to be told. I've actually had to tell somebody when somebody died. So-and-so died. Well, why didn't I hear about that? I'm telling you now. They wanted to be the first to know. And I'm serious. It happens. I've seen people get angry because they had visitors come in and somebody else invited them out to dinner before they had a chance to invite them. They were livid. I wanted to invite them. So the heresies, we get into this next one. The heresies create, it uses the word a party, a sect. And you can create that so easily, again, with bad attitudes towards others. You see how they all kind of relate to one another? I'm not saying everybody who's caught up in fornication is a drunkard. But I tell you, you know where we're going with this, don't you? Because I want you guys to be thinking about a long list. You think of a long list now of things that relate to these that are sinful. And we've been kind of doing that all the way through. Envy, murder, drunkenness, revelries. What's that mean? It is. It means to, I like this definition, letting loose. It's like the party. Over in 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 3 and 4, it talks about 3 degrees of drinking. Not just drunkenness. It uses the word, there's a word there that relates to a person that gets the fallen down drunk. There's the drinker of, do you ever know anybody that drinks enough that it changes their personality? Now they're the life of the party. Okay? Don't want to know how you know that? And thirdly, I know it. You grew up in that kind of home. And thirdly, the social drinker. Okay? And that kind of gets us to understand and the like. Now there's some obvious sinful acts that are not, they're not kind of relating to these. They kind of stand in and of themselves that are just terrible. And you guys know I mentioned drugs earlier. Tell me some sins that exist today that you might not have the book, chapter, and verse, but you know they're wrong because they're under the works of the flesh.
Pirating music off the internet.
Pirating music off the internet. Why is that so wrong? It's stealing, right? It's something that, something that I want to do. Look at this. Have you seen all these I've got here? Wow, you have a lot of money. Didn't pay that. Well, there's something to grab. So there's stealing. We didn't have that on the list, right? Well, there's other verses that deal with stealing. What else can we add to this, Stacy? Lying. Okay. Especially when we talked about hypocrisy earlier. The Bible comes out and does talk about that. But you've mentioned a couple there stealing and lying, that I can find a verse that says those are wrong. How about some ones that just come under the area of and the like?
Kind of like smoking.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay, there's a good one, because you're losing self-control. Okay, our body's the temple of the Holy Spirit. 1 Corinthians chapter 9:27. You can put all the kind of drugs that are in there that would harm your body. EJ?
Selling something that you can go through for the rest of your life.
yeah. If you're a drug dealer, that's pretty bad. You can be arrested for that.
A lot of people have a hard time with finding foul language. And even though we say not to have anything corrupt come from our mouth, they just have a hard time tying that around with really bad language. And it's.
Well, and that's why Paul had to deal with that, that coarse and foolish jesting out of the mouth for permitting blessings and cursings, and it should not be so. Jane?
I don't think many of us are going to get up tomorrow morning and say, I think I'm going to go out today and commit adultery. I'm going to go out today and get drunk. I'm going to go out today and commit fornication, hatred. I'm going to go out today and do this, which means everything you see there is the end result of something that you start earlier.
Right. And that's a lot of the likes, isn't it?
And this was written, sometimes we get in these discussions, not Galatians, but sometimes, I know I've been in places where we spent a year on Romans.
Right.
But this is written to the church. Yep. This is written to Christians.
Exactly.
So I remember when I was working and I got a phone call this morning and would you like to have dinner? And would you believe it? And I'm no saint, but a red flag come up.
Yeah.
Because I didn't normally go out and have dinner with women. But
it wasn't Betty that called you?
No.
Oh.
Betty wasn't even there. I was in the hotel.
But that's the point Gene's talking about. Look for the things that lead to it. Yeah, I might not, I've never gone on with another woman, but you know what? Stuff I watch on the internet in my privacy, that's just me. What's the harm with pornography? What's the problem with watching movies and TVs that are just not appropriate? There are things that lead to that. I like that, Gene. I don't like it, but I like what you mentioned, because there are times when people will, and the like, What about, the selfish ambition? What about flirting with coworkers?
Sure.
And it can happen. You've seen it happen within the church, people being what I would consider rather too friendly. It's one thing to go up and say to a sister, is that a new outfit? That's nice. But it's something else to go, wow, man, you really look good in that today. You just crossed the line. That's the light. That's the stuff that's going to get us in trouble, and I mean quickly. But you have to identify. That's why we're talking about this stuff, because some people think that, well, that's just the way I am. I'm really friendly, and so when I hug on a sister, I hold on to her for about 5 to 10 seconds. No, you don't. When we're in Alabama, they're the huggingest people I've ever seen. But you know what? And I like the way they did that. They would come up, and the ladies would come up, and they would, they'd come up sideways really quick. They'd come up sideways really quick. That was nice. And the brothers, I've hugged on brothers down there too. But I'm just telling us, we've got our head in the sand when we think that, well, you can never go wrong in the way you talk to somebody. That's just wrong. That's not true. James?
And I'm just going to tell you the way it is, the way I feel. I've seen situations in the church where the sisters do that. Go up and hug, and it's just not a little hug or a little, and hug.
That's the thing.
And I know there's been occasions where someone had to speak to his wife and say, I don't appreciate that.
Yeah. And again, it's preventative measures. The person could be totally innocent. And there have been situations, Debbie and I have talked about this so many times. But I'll tell her straight up. I'll say, honey, I can probably think of a dozen examples for you guys, but here's one example. Is that we were at a potluck in somebody's home. And one of the sisters, I'm holding the meeting, and wanted to talk about how much she really liked the sermon. Can I talk to you for a minute over here? The people over there, they're going, yeah. I'm kind of going this way. And she kind of wanted to go, I am not going to go off with somebody by themselves, and Bernice, complimented that when I called up and said, I'm bringing Debbie. She goes, oh, I'm glad to hear that, because you're not going to show up with just yourself. Get yourself in those awkward situations because of what they can lead to. I don't care if it's not on neither one of yours mind. Things like this happen because of baby steps, and you have to nip it.
And I hear that, but like in my circumstance, I have to work with just men sometimes for the entire day. We, just the two of us, go out into 400 acres, and that's my job.
Right. But you're constantly, because we've had this conversation, you're constantly mindful of what you say and what you don't say. I am not going to get up. There's some situations where I go, whoa, that's a conversation you need to have with a sister. There's some stuff, certain stuff I don't need to hear. And we have to understand our speech is an important part of that, of what it can lead to. The innuendos and the stuff that we need to slide in there, or what they're trying to do with us because they have this goal. And I'll just do it a little bit at a time. And you have to be careful of people, those who compliment you. And I'm telling you this, guys, and girls, it's equal, 50-50. Watch out when somebody compliments you a lot. And I mean this, a lot. You take it with a grain because it'll go to your head. That person compliments me a lot more than my own wife does, or than my own husband does. That person seems to appreciate me for things that I do, and I've never heard it from my mate. You watch out, okay? Dangers are there. Matt?
I think there also, with a lot of this stuff, has to be a responsibility with both parties. Like, talking about the cliques and those types of things, if you feel excluded, it may not be necessarily something that's intentionally being done. There's nothing, like, if I'm excluding somebody, I may not realize it, and I would want them to bring it to my attention. Same thing with if I'm saying something to someone that makes them feel uncomfortable or doing something, somebody needs to bring that to my attention. And I think about it, I had a store when I first started in my new position, that I would go in, I carried a water bottle with me, and I'd always just set it in their back room and then come right back out. I did that everywhere, all 12 stores I went to. Everybody was good with it. Nobody had a problem. This place did, but nobody ever mentioned it. Weeks went by, a couple months went by, and I could tell there was just this hatred on their part. They just did not like it. And finally, one day I just said, what's the deal here? And they told me, well, we don't like it when you set your water bottle back there. This is our store. It was a very territorial issue, which was somewhat childish in the way it all went about. But I told them, I said, all you had to do was say, hey, if you don't mind not setting that back there, let one of us set it back there for you. That's all it took. But a lot of times this stuff builds over time to the point where it boils over a lot more than it really.
Well, and some of that relates some of these relate back too, because it happens within the church. You know, like you can have two people go to the same congregation. One says, that's the most unfriendly group in the world, and the other one says, man, they're the most friendly group in the world. How can you have that? Because the one sits over there in the corner and waits for everybody to come to them, and they never go and talk to anybody else, or they get out real quick, you know, and they come real late, and they're the first ones to leave. Of course you're going to feel that way. Now, guys, what we're going to do next week is I want to talk about, well, that's kind of the downer stuff. That's been kind of the downer stuff. But I want you guys next week, we're going to be talking about these verses here. And how you can exhibit this. I want you to be thinking about this because these are more than just words. I mean, you and I need to possess the fruit of the Spirit. If we're being led by the Spirit, Tim talked about that. Like, how are you led by the Spirit? Through the Word. So we're saying, well, we're students of the Word. We're trying to be Christ-like and everything. I'm going to put you on the spot next week, and I'm going to say, do you love? Yeah. How? Joy? Peace? I want you to be thinking about how that is demonstrated in your life. Because, guys, if it's not demonstrated, we've said this time and time again, if it's not demonstrated, they're just words. They don't mean anything. These things are supposed to be changing the way we are. Man, I look at some of those qualities, and I would love somebody to tell somebody about me and say, man, do you know Chuck? Man, he's just kind. Is that a quality that people would look at you and say, man, now there's a kind person? Or, man, are they ever gentle? And we're going to talk about, well, how can you demonstrate that? How can you demonstrate that you're a gentle person? And I'll give you one big answer on that one, right here. Your words that come out of your mouth and how they come out of your mouth. I already told you that. Sure. Are we gentle? And I want us to be thinking about the different ways that we can demonstrate these words in our lives, because if we're going to have the fruit of the Spirit, we better be able to show it. So I want to thank you for your comments this morning, guys. I appreciate that, and we'll start there next week.
Thank you.